Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Rich T Racing. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different, something that I've never been able to talk about in too much detail before. It's F1 based. But what I'm going to be talking about is something that has been cropping up in the media recently, or it's maybe more on social media rather than anything else. It's the idea of, is Lewis Hamilton an overrated driver in F1? Now, I can understand where these points have come from, mostly because when Sebastian Vettel was winning everything and everyone was saying how good he was, I was there on social media saying, no, Vettel's rubbish, he can't overtake, he just wins from the front. Um, Having done research into this video, I now realise that Lewis Hamilton wins from the front as well, and he's won the majority of his races from pole. But we'll come on to that in a second. But why do people think Lewis Hamilton is an overrated driver? Well, I think the main argument is that he has never truly had a slow car. He's never done sort of what Senna, Schumacher and Vettel did. I'm using Vettel as his closest comparison in the modern era, and obviously Vettel is still a four-time world champion. Obviously, you had Senna in the Tolman in 1984. You had Schumacher in the Jordan in 1991. Vettel in the BMW, followed by the Toro Rosso for 2007 and 2008. And Lewis Hamilton jumped straight into the McLaren in 2007 and should have won that world championship. So yes, he has never had a slow car, never had to show what he can do, which I think ranks for a lot of people. And I think is a very fair argument, apart from the fact that if you look at the time when Hamilton did have a properly slow car, the McLaren in the first half of 2009, he still got a fourth place out of that car. He could have had two fourth places or a third. I'm not sure on the information around Ligate. He could have been third, could have been fourth. I don't know. So he still dragged a fourth place out of a car that later on would finish 16th and way down in the grid in the British and Turkish Grand Prix. There's also another very good point, is that McLaren had spotted him from a young age. Now, McLaren have recently spotted a few drivers from young age, Kevin Magnussen and Lando Norris. And they basically, if you're in a young driver program and you show yourself to be good enough, you deserve to be promoted to a race seat. Hamilton was in the McLaren young driver program, and McLaren thought he was good enough. So that's McLaren, the winning McLaren, the car that would go on to arguably should have won the 2007 World Championship. They thought he was good enough, so they put him in the car. Did they expect him to beat Alonso? No. That's probably why they promoted him. But the fact is, in his first season, he went toe-to-toe with Fernando Alonso and beat Fernando Alonso in his first season. So clearly, whilst yes, he has never been in a slow car, when he was brand new and fresh, he was good enough to beat the two-time world champion. So that's where that argument for me falls apart. Another thing that is, as I mentioned at the very start, he has won the majority of his races from pole. In fact, he's won, we've just had the Hungarian Grand Prix, so he's won 48 out of 81 48 out of 81 Grand Prix, which is just about 60%, just a little bit less than 60%. And that's obviously including the fact that he's been in the most dominant car since 2014. And yes, I can agree that when drivers are in the most dominant car, they should win, and they do. So then that comes down to the argument, is it the car or is it the driver? Now, with Lewis Hamilton, I think it's 100% a combination of both, because if you look at the drivers who are considered the greats, like Senna, Schumacher, I want to say Fangio, but I don't know enough about that era, so we'll use Schumacher and Senna as the main comparison. The most successful the drivers who are considered the best ever. Ayrton Senna had the most dominant car in F1 history, the 1988 McLaren. Michael Schumacher was part of what is looking more likely to become the second most dominant period of Formula One history, the Ferrari between 2000 and 2004. He also had a very good Benetton, and the Ferrari was a decent car. Maybe not so much in the 1996 season, but certainly from 1997 to 1999, he was challenging for the title. So he still had one of the best two cars on the grid at the moment for a much longer period of time than Hamilton did. So the argument that it's just the car, you still have to get into the car and do the job. And with Hamilton in the dominant car, He should have won all three championships 2014 to 2016 against Rosberg. Rosberg, a very good driver, who is a Formula One world champion, and Hamilton sat him down on quite a few occasions. The way he came at him in 2014 when Rosberg was quite far in front after Belgium, and Hamilton just then dominated him up and for the rest of the season, Brazil notwithstanding. You then look at 2015, Hamilton just destroyed him, and if it hadn't been for the reliability issues Hamilton suffered in 2016, Hamilton would have won that world championship. I know there were a few things going on with Hamilton. He wasn't driving his best. His race starts were awful, where he would be on pole and then just drop down to like 10th. That was also bad. That's on Lewis Hamilton. So he sat Rosberg down really for 2 of the 3 seasons, and the third one he still should have won that championship. You then look at Valtteri Bottas come into the equation again in a Mercedes that wasn't as good as the 3 previous, but still has won the championship every single year. Hamilton has made Bottas, who is a very good driver, look ordinary. So much so that it's now the question is, how long has Bottas got left in Mercedes? Will he be gone at the end of the year, or will he get one more year? I personally think he'll get one more year, but at the same time, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, so whilst he's been in the most dominant car, the 2 teammates he's made to look ordinary. And then if you go back further to when he had the best. So 2007, 2008, the McLaren was very good. It was the top 2 cars on the grid. He beat Alonso and he comfortably beat Kovalainen. You look at the following year, 2009, when he had Kovalainen again in bad cars. Hamilton won 2 races, and I'm fairly certain that Kovalainen never even stood on the podium. You then look at the 2011. You then look at his time with Jenson Button, and yes, Button did beat him in 2011 and scored more points than him in the 3 years. But this was the time when things were going against Hamilton slightly. Look at 2012, for example. Lewis Hamilton should have won at least 3 more Grand Prix. He retired. His car broke down on him 3 times when he was in the lead in Singapore, Abu Dhabi, and then he got crashed into by Hulkenberg at Brazil. So Hamilton should have had 75 points more, and so that's where factors outside of Hamilton's control started playing against him. Admittedly, he did have some pretty dud performances here and there. I think certainly in 2011 he was arguably his worst season. He was not very good, and Button was amazing that year. But even so, against a very good driver, Hamilton really still showed himself to be the more consistent driver during that period. Obviously, Hamilton fought for the 2010 World Championship up until the last round. Button fell away in Brazil. And then in 2012, despite those 3 retirements from winning positions, Hamilton still beat Jenson and was still the more consistent fighter for the championship. Again, fell away, I think it was after the Singapore retirement. That was when Hamilton's championship was over. But I still also believe he should have won the championship. So that actually brings me on to another point that shows Hamilton to maybe not be overrated, in that really Hamilton could be sitting on 9 World Championships. He should have won 2007. He should have won in 2010 if it hadn't been for a tyre blowout with 3 laps to go of the Spanish Grand Prix. He would have finished second, and the gap between Vettel and Hamilton at the end of the season was less than 18 points. He should have won. I think he should have won 2012 based on those 3 retirements from winning positions, and then he should have won in 2016. So he could be a 9-time world champion. I am, of course, aware that stats don't say everything. And then again, I will come back to it, that just about 60% of his race wins have come from pole, and that has also led to him not having massive amounts of standout drives. I've got a list here that I think are his best drives. You've got Great Britain 2008 and 2014, Germany 2018, Singapore 2018, Bahrain 2014, Japan 2007, Hungary and Germany 2014. That's only 8 Grand Prix that I can think of. I'm sure somebody will point out to me that there are other Grand Prix that I've missed out. But that's 8 races in 200, and I think it's about 250 now, or thereabouts. And only 8 of them for Hamilton have been truly standout. And you can say that like that, and that has come from him qualifying it on pole and then dominating the race. I agree with that, But at the same time, he has got to put it on pole position. And that then comes to the next point, in that Hamilton is such a good qualifier. The way he puts it on pole, the fact that he can do it by sometimes half a second, if not more, sometimes certainly in the wet, 1.2 seconds faster than the next driver, or at least certainly than his teammate. I think it was Italy 2016. He went half a second in qualifying faster than Rosberg. That's a track that's only got a handful of corners. I also mentioned in the wet. Hamilton is fantastic in the wet. Again, up until Hockenheim, where, yes, he had one of his worst Grand Prix ever. Up until Hockenheim, between Japan 2014 and Hockenheim, he'd won all of the wet weather affected races. You don't win that without being great in the wet. And one of the things that everyone says why Senna is so good is because of his ability in the wet. You look at Japan 2007, where Hamilton, it was his first time in the wet, starting from the front, under safety car conditions, difficult conditions for a rookie. He looked like he'd done it 1,000 times before. So you can again, people. I think a few people are, including P-Dubs, is pointing to Germany 2019 as being showing why Hamilton is an overrated driver. But it's one bad race, one bad wet weather race out of how many? I don't know. Don't quite know how he's done. I think he's had 2 bad wet weather races. All the others, he's either won or been on or come very close to the podium, or been in a car that wasn't quite good enough, vis-a-vis Malaysia and China 2009. But again, his wet weather driving is phenomenal. He's only lost to a teammate twice and could be sitting on 9 world titles. All of these factors, for me, whilst I can see why Hamilton can be considered overrated, I think it's just people who don't like the fact that he's winning a lot at the moment. And he is going to go on to win a 6th world title this year, and very soon will be the most successful driver in terms of wins ever. Because by the end of next year, he will have won more than 91 Grand Prix. That is a fact. Unless Mercedes do a Ferrari next year, but that just isn't going to happen. So, just to sum up, yes, I can see why people do think Hamilton's overrated, but I do not think he is. I think he is not the best ever, but certainly one of the best ever, and certainly the best of our generation. And that is it. That is all for this edition of. And that is it for this edition of Rich T Racing. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, this is the first time I've done a video like this. If you've just stumbled across this and you think it's crap, please forgive me. We're getting used to this. The three of us have never really never properly run a YouTube channel before. And that is it for this edition of Rich T Racing. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you thought this was a bit rubbish and a bit amateur, please bear with me. I've never done a video like this before. I'm just rattling off what I've got written here and what comes into my head. So if you thought it was rubbish, please let us know, but also bear with us, because we will get better if we are given the time, like Valtteri Bottas, although he probably won't be given the time. Actually, has been given the time. Again, rambling. But yeah, that is it. If you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I hate asking for likes, but it will get us noticed, and we'll get more people interested in what we're doing. And obviously, if you like it and we see that people like it, we'll be more tempted to make more stuff. So yeah, that's why I always ask for the likes. But again, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And the final thing for me to say now will be ta-ta and farewell.